I stand corrected, it's about you have about 5 days or so to produce it. No?
5 days.
This has none. 5 days now. Yes, currently. But I'm saying, let us change behavior in a gradual way. We're coming from 5 to 0. I propose we say you have at least a 48 hours. Why I'm saying that? I'm proposing it, you can shoot it down. But why I'm proposing it?
Crazy.
Too many times. It's not majority of we are lawbreakers. Mr. President?
Crazy.
Mr. President, not the majority of the Jamaicans are not lawbreakers. And each time we have a challenge with the minority, then we become oppressive on the majority. That is my concern. So I am saying, I understand the purpose, but let's reduce it from 45 days to a 2-day period. Let us use technology to drive our implementation on the road. And look, it should be fine time that every police officer out there dealing with road traffic, that they have a handheld device. So you can look at my license plate number and put it in. You can ask for my TRN number, which is my driver's license number, and put it in. That's what I'm saying. Why you coming with that? Then you still, but no. So the point I'm making, Mr. President, to the leader. Why you coming with that then? It will be sometime as human beings. It will happen to you too. You leave home and you rush out, and the license left there. We're all human beings. Let us not be too drastic. What you're saying now, the police has no discretion, If the police asks and you don't give, it's a fine, $5,000. You can't. You must have it in person. That's where I'm going, Mr. President. Let us change behavior through cooperation and not punitive, drastic measures. It doesn't work. Let us learn from our experiences. Because what I'm saying, technology must be integrated.
But I'm saying,
no, it's not yet. It's going to be. So I accept it. I'm not disputing that. So since you're going to integrate technology, then if you stop Mr. A, and you put in the license plate number, and you say, wait, what? Just a name. You give you a name. Must give you a name. You realize the name and the license plate, 2 different persons. You have a lot. You ask for a TRN, most person will have that in their head. And you realize that if when you put in the TRN number or thing that the license plate number, it matches, and the person will leave my driver's license, then you get the police at discretion measure. Now produce it at X point. You can call support persons, you can ask the person to be escorted to a police station, you can call a friend to justify. But according to the law, once you ask me, and I don't deliver, it's an instant ticket of 5,000. I don't think that is fair. I don't think that's the intention of the law. And we must pass law to seek cooperation rather than create hostility and conflict between state and its citizens. We must pass law for cooperation, not to punish. And I just express my view on that as we go forward.
That's class 21B.
Also, in all of this, but this new law, I built to become law, Mr. President and Senator Haley should agree, transformation and continued transformation in the tax office system, tax administration system, to ensure greater efficiency and ease of buying the fees for the certificate of fitness and the license must be continued to encourage that to create the bottleneck, but to ensure smooth payment and by license system. So the transformation of our tax admin system will continue and will be necessary as we roll out this new system. I support the no renewal of the driver's license until outstanding fees or tickets are paid. I support that. Very good initiative. And as you said, Madam Leader, this will prevent any amnesty. We just want to ensure that the logistics, as Senator Soley said, is worked out and we achieve this. No democratic, orderly state can explain to anybody how comes a man with 1,000 tickets still having a driver's license to get 1,001 tickets. That's madness. That's inefficiency. And anything to eradicate that, I will support 100%. Because if you check it, many of the repeated accidents that are cause fatalities are sometimes these irresponsible, reckless drivers that we must ensure weed out of the system once and for all, and I support that. If I look at the second schedule in page 92, again, I have a problem with about chief provisions here. The one that called for the instant showing or displaying of your papers, and if you don't have it again, you will be fine. I just make it in the same context about the driver's license. So I twin those two issues. The one, page 92. So if I ask to produce your papers and you don't have it on you again, then you'll be automatically fine. And in this context, as I read it, you can be fined twice, because if you don't have it, then that's an automatic fine. And if you don't produce it, but you can't produce what you don't have at the time. I'm just saying again, little discretion here. The law must give the officers little discretion. As nobody say, we don't assume that Jamaica is 100% corrupt. No, that's the problem, you know. When we have a problem and we enforce it, we think all of it corrupt, all of it are thief, and that's the problem. So everybody think every politician a thief. So if Skefer say me I'm a thief, I'm going to say, you sure you? We have to let our citizens believe that they are good people. And when good people, unfortunately, lead the lives and the papers at home, we don't turn them into criminals. And that's what we're doing. So while and don't get me wrong, Minister, I understand the corrupt people out there. Or we must get them by all means necessary. But we must balance it. Because Senator Webby, you could be like little years to run by your board meeting. And because you don't leave the papers them in the car every night. You live in the table and you drink the 1 cup of coffee and you dash. It happened to you. Many of us. Wednesday I was coming to the Senate. And when I reach on the main road, I must leave my phone. Now in today's 21st world, your phone is like your business. I had to turn back for it. Not leave it at home. I only have one woman like you, Senator Charles. But the point I'm making, you couldn't do your driver's license. Or the papers, the fitness, the insurance paper. I am saying, while you seek to inculcate this new behavior, the drastic transformation sometimes create the resistance. And remember at all times, there's a trust deficit still between our citizens and most of the policemen and the police. Let us understand. So let's just build a relationship and not a division. That's all I'm asking as we get it right over time. Behavior modification doesn't happen instantly, Senator Morrissey, our teacher, you know that. Or you didn't go to the Jamaica to learn behavior modification. But we understand that. It's a learned change that happens over time. Because you have a culture of indiscipline, a culture of corruption. We want to catch those, but don't give the perception that all are we corrupt, all are we are thief, all are we indisciplined. I reject that yesterday, today, tomorrow, and every other day. So let me, as I move and coming on, I just want to express another issue. Because I speak for the ordinary man them on the street. This man break the law for you, but I speak for them. When the police seize or take away cars for the citizens, again, because of my experience, if I the quote-unquote big man, one phone call, and him drive or collect it back. Ordinary man can't make a phone call. Let us not pretend. So lie me I tell. And when you go to the police for the car, there's no proper system or proper documentation. So you're told that Constable X was the one that did it. You know, they are work today. And nobody else can deal with it. That's the reality, you know. And the vehicle stays there, week 1, week 2, till you grow, and storage fee increases, you go back, Constable X just left. Nobody else can deal with it. And you go look at your car, you see one tire gone today. Then you see the rear view mirror gone tomorrow. And by the time they give you back, might as well you keep it. You don't keep it. These are some of the realities, you know. So when you pass laws here, We must pass line in the context of people's reality, not in the comfort of our AC rooms. But unfortunately for me, or unfortunately, me experience. So I'm saying we must seize the cars in a center simply. Don't get me wrong. But have a system that if a person is willing to pay the license fee and everything, the efficiency in the system will allow the person to get back his or her car as quickly as possible, or as quickly as they can pay. And they don't get a further runaway, caught up in an unnecessary bureaucracy that prevents them from getting back to a normal state. Some of these persons might be a taxi man, it's a source of living. They have a little loan on it from the credit union, and you have it unnecessarily because the system will tell you that the person that did that is not here and nobody else can deal with it. No 21st century system cannot run like this. I see some proposal in the bill, but I just want it to work as the intent in the bill so we can give people that ray of hope. If you breach the law, you pay the fine and get back to the normal state as quickly as possible. That's all we ask. We don't punish them indefinitely. That's my charge to this Honourable Senate today. Two final points I want to make. When it comes to the license system, and I hope in the future we can really get there to a graduated license system. Not what we don't have in terms of learners and below, but a proper graduated system. Because the real indiscipline out there is that many of the drivers them can't drive. Many of them were not properly taught how to drive in the first place. So until we address that system, we'll never clean up the indiscipline in the real and comprehensive way that we seek to so do. So in that special, and we can get the notes from the parliament here, that special select committee, there was a 3-tier graduate system that was proposed that so rather than the learners, you call a provisional license for a certain period of time, you can drive in certain zones, and then you apply to class 2 and class 3, and then when you reach class 3, it's like a first degree, a master's, and a PhD. You go up the scale. So let us revisit that. Secondly, we don't have a formal system of regulating trainers who teach people to drive. We don't have. Everybody is a trainer. And everybody get their head put on the vehicle and moving all over the place. We need to regulate. And we need to have driving schools that you're going to apply to, you're going to learn to drive. You get a certification. That trainer must be certified. And when you go to get your license, it must be from the certified authority and you be competent to drive. It can't be a wishy-washy activity. Because people must learn to drive. And if it comes with a cost between you and the school. And there will be many schools. So it will be a competitive system, supply and demand. But people must go to school to learn to drive. Yeah. Because what you have, those who have the bad habits, they are the ones becoming the teacher. So bad habits passing on and on. And we have this growing rate of inefficiency and indiscipline in our school. And also defensive driving. We have systems here. We have systems here. When I was in the Ministry of Education and the last administration, we were developing a driver's education program for our schools. The reality in our system and government change, we park it because of our ideas. But we started working with the private sectors. Jamaica National, for example, was a key partner. And we had the modules and the curriculum. Defensive driving is a critical part of that. Because we must ensure that people are taught effectively how to drive. And the final point I want to ensure and discuss, Mr. President, we talk about the driver's license, but we need to investigate the integrity of the license. That same that special select committee, the police came here and gave us statistics as to fake IDs in the system. Fake IDs in the system are false. Okay.
Mr. President, the time being 1:20, might standing orders be suspended to allow the Senate to sit beyond 1:30 to complete the business of the
The
day?
question is that the Senate be allowed to sit beyond 1:20, I'm sorry, 1:30 to complete the business of the day. Those in favor? Against? And Senator Scaffer, your time had been completed.
Yeah, I'm wrapping up, Mr. President.
So the question is that this
5
time be
minutes.
expended to complete.
No more 5 minutes left. Let's wrap it up.
Mr. President, the Speaker's time having expired, might it be extended to allow him to complete?
The question is that Senator Scaffer's time be extended to allow him to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Leader. So, Mr. President, I said at that point in time, the police came and said there's a lot of false driver's license system. So, while we're having this new bill today to become law, we need to ensure that we protect the integrity of the system, to ensure that the system producing genuine license, and we don't have any competing interests out there producing false licenses that are similar to the ones we have. So it's almost difficult to differentiate. So if it means that we change the characteristics of the one we have now to make it absolutely clear and easy to be identified and not easy to duplicate, we need to do that, because we need to ensure that those who are certified to drive on the roads are genuine, authentic drivers, well-trained, well-disciplined, protecting the interests of the citizens, themselves and the lives of the passenger that they carry. So, Mr. President, in closing, I have shared some thoughts. Anything that will reverse the challenge on our roads, because I experience it every day, because as a person that travels almost every day from Manchester to Kingston and back, and the parts of the island, I understand and I see the indiscipline on a daily basis. We need to weed it out, but while we're doing that, let us not behave that, give the impression that all of us are in that particular category. If it pleases you, Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Scaffer. Senator Sinclair.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I wish to express my support for this bill entitled Road Traffic Act 2018. And, you know, several of the things that I have in my presentation, as I go through, I will just take them out where persons have commented on them before. But as was expressed by Senator Slowly, we had a difficulty in determining the number of registered vehicles, because you spoke of a particular number. And when I looked at my notes, I had a different figure, which I got from what I would consider to an official document, that there are 650,000 registered motor vehicles in Jamaica. So there that needs to obviously be something that is determined with certainty. But, Mr. President, I think this legislation is very timely, having regard to what is taking place on our roadways and the fatalities. And I look on motor vehicles in a particular way, because I view them as being guided missiles, or they have the potential of being guided missiles. And, you know, just in reference, and it could possibly happen in Jamaica, where you could have just two vehicles meeting a collision, coaster buses, each carrying 30 persons, and a number of deaths that are potentially possible, 60 persons potentially. And it happened similarly in Canada recently, where 14 persons died in one accident in Saskatchewan, Canada. And only recently, the accident on the Duncan's main road, which was horrible, where two young men were trapped in a vehicle and burnt alive. Nobody could save them in those circumstances. But in looking at the the outcome of that particular accident, where the engine of one of the vehicles was totally dislodged from the vehicle, does say to us that we need to improve on the discipline on our roadways. Over the past 24 years, between 1992 to 2015, my research has revealed that 8,476 persons have lost their lives on our roadways. And this averages out at a very high figure of 387 persons per year. And, you know, one of the things that I give serious consideration to when I looked at this particular bill is that many of the owners of motor vehicles, and I don't know how they get away with it, because vehicles are required to go to the motor vehicle examination depot once per year at least. But the modification to some of the vehicles, where you see, you drive behind them, you see there's spitting fire. You look on the inside and you see some gadgets that are fitted to racing cars on controlled roadways at Dover, for example. You see some little gadgets inside them. I want to know how it is that those modified vehicles, and modified to these used vehicles that come from the Asian continent, that are not as sturdy as the European-made vehicles or as the vehicles made in America, but they are modified by persons, larger rims being placed on them, that may cause imbalance in respect to the steering system, etc. But they are allowed to be on our roads and under the control of persons who are not even certain were properly trained to be driving motor vehicles on our roadways. And so that is the concern. And I think that much of what is contained in this bill is seeking to address that situation. So, Mr. President, I note the increased penalties for the offenses committed. And unlike Senator Slowly, who wants to draw an analogy to new taxes, it's not new taxes. And it's not something that you have to pay. You have to pay your tax. But avoid breaching the rules of the road. And there's no burden on you whatsoever. So whatever penalty is imposed, I didn't even look on that section at all in examining this bill, you know. Because I don't have to pay it if I comply with the rules of the road. I would agree with Senator Sophia Beans, where she says that some of the penalties should be increased, having regard to the circumstances. But I don't think that we should have any concern whatsoever in regard to the penalty that is attached. In respect to the penalty, I just want to say to Senator Slowly, because he spoke about the penalty for insurance or no insurance, or if you were to present a fraudulent insurance. Those things are covered. Because the Motor Vehicle Third Party Risk Act, if you fail to produce, or you drive a motor vehicle without the proper insurance or having it insured, the penalty, and many persons don't realize this, they think they're going to go to court and they pay a small fine. But the penalty under Section 4.2 of the Motor Vehicle Third Party Risk Act for driving without insurance is a disqualification for a period of 12 months. What we must demand is that our judges enforce that particular section. It is not contained in the Road Traffic Act, it is in the Motor Vehicle Third Party Risk Act. In respect to you presenting a fraudulent or bogus insurance, that's a breach of the Forgery Act. So, and that carries a prison sentence. So there are significant penalties in respect to that. The question that you may argue is that it probably should be increased. In respect to Sophia Beans, Senator, protruding from motor vehicles is also contained, body protrusion, in this particular bill in clause section 88. It does speak to persons protruding from vehicles, yes, 88. And road infrastructure, to which you had spoken to, is contained in section 70 of the bill. You know, I note, Mr. President, I note the requirement in this bill for persons to hold learner's license for 6 months before being able to apply. And Senator Skeffrey spoke to not having your driver's license, and that he thinks that there should be an opportunity for the person to be given to present your driver's license. But I think he's, in respect to even making reference to the existing legislation, that he has misunderstood or misread it, because there is no automatic giving of 5 days under the present legislation. It is, I wouldn't even want to use the term discretion. It is no. Because if you read the present legislation says that if you are able to satisfy your identity to the officer. Now, I don't know how a stranger to another stranger is going to satisfy the identity to that individual. He is going out there to drive a motor vehicle. Put your driver's license, because that is the purpose for you having entered that vehicle. It is similar to the Firearms Act. The Firearms Act requires and makes it mandatory for the licensed firearm holder to have his license about his person. Now, if he is going to be taking that firearm with him, that is what he intends to do. You want to walk with the license. You're going into a vehicle to go drive it. How can you possibly, except out of tremendous carelessness, you forget your driver's license? Come on, man. So I want to say that in respect to what is contained in this bill, I fully support it. Mr. President, the one that I find very interesting, and I suppose I will have to curb my behavior, is the use of electronic devices. I suppose many of us will have to seek to amend our behavioral patterns very quickly. But we have a concern, and I'll go through it as quickly as I can, is has this bill gone far enough? Has it gone far enough? And I'm not opposing the bill. I am just making these comments because it may be looked on in dealing with other legislation. It may be dealt with possibly in the regulations that are to come, or it may be dealt with by just mere systems. And the first one I have noted here, and it is fully supporting your point, Senator Skeffrey, where the persons who provide training, we must know who those trainers are. I see some persons taking people to go and get to the motor vehicle examination depot, and I don't think they themselves knew what they were doing in providing some assistance to that individual. Because what I saw parallel parking attempted, and it wasn't parallel parking. It was something else. And the fellow said, well, I am complete in doing what I intended to do to show that I have the ability for parallel parking. But proper training of the person who goes for a driver's license is just like swimming, riding a bicycle, you playing cricket, learning to play the game, understanding the basics, and you have it. It is ingrained in you, and it will always follow with you. But if you don't, then you're just going to continue the bad practices. I also believe that there should be a refresher course, not only for where you may have committed offenses. In the same way with the Firearms Act, we now have to do some type of refresher every 3 years. I think that we should look on providing for refresher courses in respect to persons who hold driver's license. The particular period obviously can be addressed. Mr. President, the issue of disabled persons and disabled parking mentioned by Senator Sophia Binns, and in looking through the bill, there is a possibility that this issue can be dealt with under a particular section, Section 85. But to my mind, I do not believe that Section 85 is sufficient. And it has something that I believe is of concern. Because if it is left to the local authorities, and you look on section 85.1 where it says a local authority may, at the request of the authority, I am wondering whether that places any restriction on the local authority acting on its own in looking at this issue of establishing disabled parking areas. And I'm certain that based on his comments in the past, that Senator Morris will speak more on that, but it is a concern that I have that as to whether the bill has gone far enough. In respect to Mr. President, the issue of animals, and this particular bill refers to animals, but it says that if you are in a collision with an animal, you must stop. But what happens? Yes, well, probably you can't do anything else. You cannot do anything else because your vehicle may be totally disabled. But the problem that I have is with persons who have animals that border roadways. They keep them on property that border roadways. Those properties are not properly secured to prevent animals straying onto the road. It is, and those animals, cows, horses, as the case may be, may cause serious damage or cause persons to be involved in accidents with other vehicles in swerving away from an animal running onto the roadway. We in Jamaica operate under the common law, and the common law gives no protection to persons who are driving carefully along the roadway, but a stray animal enters the roadway and causes damage to your vehicle. There's no protection for that person under the common law. And so I think that whether in some review, whether it is in the regulations that are to come, or whether we make adjustments to the Main Roads Act and the Parochial Roads Act so that we can give protection to the persons who are driving along our roadways against animals that stray onto the road. I think that that is something that needs to be looked at urgently. And there is an issue that happens in the urban centers. And there was reference to, in the existing legislation, handcarts is referred to in the existing legislation, but I don't see any reference to it in this present legislation. And this one deals with that issue. But handcarts, some of them are as big as motor vehicles. They take up the parking space on the road and they are pushed in the opposite direction on a one-way street. And they meet in collisions with motor vehicles. They meet in collisions with pedestrians going along the roadway. And they go away and no one can identify who is responsible. And I believe that this legislation, regulation, should be looked at. I'm not going as far as Senator. I'm not going as far, because she wanted to tax them. I'm not talking about taxing them. I'm talking about giving them an identification. Giving them an identification. And it can be done.
That's on a point of order, Chairman. The member, I don't think he really wanted to do that. Is imputed an improper motive to a member of the other house. I don't think she wanted, she's clear she took no decision to tax them, but the reality is registration, because taxes is not the power of the parish council. So I just urge the member to withdraw that.
Senator Brown, it was a registration fee. So you are taking that issue between the, you can just clear up that. Not,
well, Mr. President, Mr. President, it is a fee that is paid to the local authority. And when you speak to Senator Slowly about his taxation in respect to fines. But Mr. President, the notification, registration, identification of these operators, even without a fee, because we understand what they are seeking to do, and they provide a good service to persons, especially in the urban centers that have to go to the markets. But for them to be properly registered, I think it is something that is critical. They use the roadways and so forth. Other supporting efforts, because legislation is good, but government agencies and the local government authorities must play their part. Persons have already spoken to the issue of signage and improvement to the roadways. And I want to give to this administration and past administrations high commendation for seeking to improve the roadways that we have to use to move from one place to another. An issue, especially with the fact that these penalties, these fines under this act, may be significant. And it would also assist in respect to the presentation of their own cases, that we must demand that the police get body cameras, or that they use the cameras that are dashboard cameras, as in the United States, where you have traffic stops, that persons can see whether the issuing of a ticket was proper. And I suspect when you listen to the story given by Senator Slowly, his experience, the officer could do nothing else, because the officer obviously had his dash cam working, or his body camera being in the United States working. And so he's not taking any talk from anybody. He's just doing what he had to do in ensuring that Senator Slowly got the proper ticket, and that he would have to eventually pay the proper fine. But I think that is something that needs to be looked at. The breathalyzers must be available and working, because we have heard many things about breathalyzers. But to be honest with you, Mr. President, and we have heard of cases where persons have met in collisions, but I cannot recall for the longest while seeing matters that are placed before our courts where persons are driving under the influence of alcohol and caught because of the breathalyzer. But this is where I have a problem. I think it is already established that the smoking of ganja is ganja can be a mind-altering drug. But looking through this particular legislation, I don't know how it is that one would establish what is the situation there. And I see persons presently, because of the amendment to the Dangerous Drugs Act, driving and smoking marijuana with ganja. Yes. They're smoking. Car filled with smoke. But you know, and I said it earlier in an earlier presentation, but the ticketing system that was promised is something that needs to be put in place. Because, you know, smoking a little weed and drinking a little bit of the other thing can cause serious problems on our roadways. That is so, Senator. The removal of the excessive tint, we put it on to the PPV man, but the private operator driving some vehicle that you can't see in there, and I don't very much that he can see outside of his vehicle to see what is happening. The taxi man has put it on back? Well, that needs to be looked at, and it has greater benefit than the issue of just dealing with criminal issues, but also in respect to what persons are able to see. The static camera systems need to be up and running, and there is one thing that I think that persons seem to be skirting around. Many persons are skirting around it, and I will say it cautiously, but the perceived corruption at the motor vehicle examination depot. So I'm being very cautious in respect to that. We have to find a way to stamp it out. Stamp it out once and for all. Some persons tell me that their vehicles don't even go to the examination depot, but them get license to drive motor vehicle. And the education that you have spoken about, Senator Skeffrey and others. I'm just driving into Kingston this morning, and getting onto the Mandela. You have 2 lanes that proceed in either direction. And overtaking is a critical component spoken about in this particular legislation. And it is not limited to the motor vehicles. It is also applicable to the bike riders. Because what I see the bike riders doing is riding on the white line and going between the cars, which I think is not only dangerous, but in light of what is happening in Jamaica, I think it is also a very scary situation. You stop at a stoplight, and a bike rider comes between yourself and another motor vehicle, and you get paranoid because of what is happening in Jamaica in respect to criminal activity and drive-by shooting and that type of thing. But I have seen videos coming out of the United States, and even when I travel there on my once a while sojourn, bike riders have to stay in line. They can't ride along the white line to pass. So when you talk about education, it is critical because I think presently in Jamaica, no rider of a bike think that he's doing anything wrong when he makes that passage along the white line between the motor vehicles going in the same direction. And what was reflected in the state of emergency in St. James between January 18th and the end of March, with the heightened police presence, is that 11,000 tickets were written for breaches. And the ACP Powell made a comment in which he indicated that it looked like persons don't even understand the rules of the road. And so that in itself speaks to the need for good training and for us to ensure that our public is educated. Because you don't want to be out there and it's just a matter of ticketing, as you have said. And in moving forward, and I've seen it since I've been here, for the short while that I've been here, is that the regulations seem to take a very long time to come forth. And I hope that the regulations attached to this particular bill will be coming quickly, and so that we can have everybody knowing what is on the table and for compliance to be in order. So, Mr. President, I thank you very much. I thank you, members of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator Sinclair. Senator Knight.
Thank you, sir.
You're laughing? I want some old tires from you. Thank you, President. President, I want to make a very brief intervention. This bill I support generally, and any comments I make in relation to the suggestion of changes is made out of goodwill and not in any way to detract from that which has been produced. My colleague spoke about signage. Very important. And I don't know if colleagues in here share the same view I have of some of the signs that I have seen. They are confusing. I mean, I was looking at a sign recently, and it says it's pointing to downtown, Half a Tree, and Stone Hill. And it uses, of course, arrows. And the sign says, downtown, and the arrow goes from right to left. Then it says Stony Hill, and the arrow goes from left to right. And then it says Halfway Tree, and the arrow goes from right to left. No, I say to myself, what is the difficulty in saying downtown, Halfway Tree, and both those arrows point from right to left? And the one that says to Stony Hill, it just points from left to right, the opposite direction. So you spend some time deciphering, blocking traffic, people blowing you, and so on. So, you know, it's having signs, that's important. But sometimes how the signs are made, they're confusing. And then I don't know if there are persons here who drive, for example, on the Barbican Road, and especially around by Los Sushan. You know, I find this thing very confusing, you know. There are two lanes coming up. What's that? East Kings House Road? East Kings House Road. Neither lane has any arrow which says left lane with a left turn only, or right lane with a right turn only. So when you are in those lanes, the right lane, there's nothing to prohibit those drivers from going left if they're going to continue around the other side of Barbican Road. But you have policemen there sometimes, and they're turning back persons and so on. And then, but here's a situation in which there's no white line. There's no continuous white line, which would mean that if you are in the right lane, you can go over. But they're turning people back, and I suppose some have gotten tickets and so on. So signage is important, and we need to take a little time and give a little thought to how these signs are constructed. I'm going to have a look at clause 21B, 201B. A person shall not drive a motor vehicle on a road unless the person has the permit or driver's license in the motor vehicle while driving. The driver's license, right? I thought the person still had to have his driver's license with him. Is that different? Okay. No, it is the concept. Let me tell you, Minister, I noticed you were kind of adamant that you were not going to entertain the thought. Well, you'll entertain the thought, but you weren't going to act on the thought of putting a change. I understand that the ideal is to have the driver's license either on your person or in your vehicle at all times. But you know what I've been told? There are persons who don't keep the original of their documents in the vehicle, you know. And one of the reasons is that they fear that if it's stolen. so they have their copies. The driver's license, the ideal is as stated. But I think we got to move gingerly from that which exists to the ideal. You know, Senator Sinclair, I got to the airport once, you know. I left my passport. I forgot my passport. Can you imagine? And I have seen it, luckily, I was early. I usually try to be early. And I was able to call home and say my driver's license, my passport is so-and-so. Bring it out for me now. Thanks. And it came. I forgot, I was traveling once from Washington, D.C. to Toronto, driving. And I reached Fort Erie at Buffalo. Sorry, I forgot my passport. Had to call friend, and it was sent up on a plane. So these things happen. So you don't want to penalize persons, President, in that kind of situation. So I heard the suggestion of 2 days. Consider it seriously. Consider it seriously. I heard that you can, for example, have it on a photograph of it on your cell phone. Is it that, for example, if I decide that I'm going to take a photograph of my driver's license and keep it in my car at all times, and I produce this, I'm still in trouble? Let me tell you, I keep my driver's license in my wallet. I'm not normally a forgetful person, but I have some money in my pocket. I have a couple dollars in my pocket here now. And I also have my wallet. Fewer dollars in the wallet than in the pocket. But sometimes I don't have the wallet. I don't have the wallet. Am I going to be penalized? A policeman stops me and Senator, the policeman stops me, he's going to give me a... You follow me? So reason dictates that what we ought to do is not look right now to move to a position where it is mandatory to have your license on you. But that 2 weeks, 2 days, or, for example, a photograph of the license, or, for example, some other document capable of identifying the driver. And let me tell you one of the reasons, because normally I would move with you on this. But I don't know, for example, whether there's a high incidence of persons being given time of 5 days to produce the license and don't. We don't have any statistics here to suggest that. So we are, it's a wrong that we are trying to address without really knowing whether or not this is something pervasive. So I would suggest that we give the 2-day period. That's my point on that. You know, we spoke a lot about enforcement. If we pass these laws here and they're not enforced, the problem is not that the problem will remain, it's going to increase. Because where persons see that laws are passed but not enforced, then they just carry on in their unlawful ways. And someone says, don't bother about it, man. They're not going to enforce that. And others are brought into that kind of behavior. And the enforcement is not, you know, as I've always said, when we were introducing in 1996 the concept of zero tolerance, it's not a matter, you know, that every time you see someone commit some offense, that the offense, the person must be charged. That's not necessarily what enforcement means. But a blind eye cannot be turned. Something must be done. And that's why police officers, who are the enforcers of the law, are given a discretion. But they must do something. You see a police vehicle over there, and you see a man turning from the left lane across the right lane to go over, and the policeman does nothing. He's blind to what has happened. Sometimes that's the claim. You're not a traffic cop, you're a law enforcement officer. So something must be done. If it's even a warning to say you did something wrong, don't do that again. And one of the things we have to understand, and it used to be, where most of the traffic police were on motorcycles, most of them. But you see a lot of motor vehicles now, like cars, marked traffic division, and so on. And one of the reasons why, in those days with which I'm familiar, we had traffic cops on motorcycles was that they could go in and out of traffic to apprehend persons or deal with persons who broke the law. So it's not just a public education now for citizens. It is a change of culture in the police force. And that's for the Commissioner of Police to let his officers know, look here, man, you're going to be on motorcycles. I don't know if some of you here remember in the 80s when we had the Honda squad. Policemen know not riding on the Honda motorcycle, smaller type. They want, what name, Kawasaki, big motorcycles. No, we don't have the highways for those, you know. They use them in the US because of all these highways and so on. So we have to try to see if we can get our police officers to understand role resources. I'm going to look at 26(1)(b). Where that is? Page, yes, 26(1)(b). The authority shall not grant a driver's license, yes, to the applicant, unless the applicant has obtained from the authority a certificate of competence certifying that the applicant is able to read and write and identify road signs and symbols that are associated with the road code. Now, I think there should be a specific offense following after this. And let me tell you why. We understand that there are corrupt practices which prevent these things that are legislated from being observed. And you have a lot of people out there who can't read and can't write, who have license. You tell a man, drive from A to B, and a road sign says men at work. What's the difference between that sign saying men at work and a sign saying detour? You don't mean any difference to him. Because I don't know what he says. Now a policeman comes up and he sees somebody who there's a sign marked detour and the driver does not. The likelihood is that the driver does not know what that sign means. So the policeman stops him. And he says to him, "Didn't you see the sign, man?" He may very well say yes. He may say, "Boy, officer, you know, I never noticed it." I believe that the police officer on the spot should have the power to ask him to read that sign. Read that sign to me. And what it means, and read that other sign up there. And if he can't read it, to at once seize that license. That person had no business on the road. We have to find a way to deal with that because there are many. The Bible says, "My name is Legion, for we are many." There are many. I'm going to have a look at section 28, clause 28. Clause, yes, clause 28. That's a JDF clause? Yes, clause 28. No, I don't quite understand it, Minister, because it says giving the JDF the power to issue a certificate of competence to a JDF officer. To be able to drive, carry out functions of driving. Is that license applicable to him driving whilst not carrying out the functions? Or is he to have two licenses? You see, so that what has to happen here now, the way it is worded, I got the impression that that driver would need another license if he is driving in a private capacity. So have a look, see. And I wondered whether or not there was the normal payment associated with the granting of that license. Just as how another individual has to pay that JDF officer. And then the JCF, I wondered if there ought to be a comparable provision for JCF, because I know, for example, that the JCF, one has to have a driver's license, and to become a force driver, a police officer has to go through a particular training. No. For the police officer. The police officer has to go to a particular training out at Twickenham Park. They have to attend a training course for length of time. So have a look at it and see whether or not it's something that you could contemplate now or something that you would contemplate in time to come. I'm going to look at 32.5. Where a person has accumulated more than 20 demerit points and his driver's license has been suspended pursuant to subsection 1C, the authority may require the person to be retested as to his competence to drive before his driver's license is reinstated. My first comment is this. I don't think is that it ought to be a may. It should be a shall. It should be a shall. You must be retested. And then I join other colleagues who spoke to the whole issue of driving school. When this legislation about demerit points and so on was developed in the 90s, it was greatly influenced by what existed then in Washington, D.C., in the U.S., greatly influenced by that. And one of the things I can tell you is that there was some contemplation to moving to a driving school. At the time, we had not done the study to enable any legislative provision. But persons, for example, who have a certain number of demerit points must go to a driving school, because this thing is about safety. And what is happening on our roads today, we just can't tolerate. And so they have to go to driving school. If they have 10 demerit points, bop, driving school. And I think that the system there then, I don't know if it still exists, the system there then was that a driver who got a ticket with demerit points, instead of paying the fine, could elect to go to driving school. So it you may not be able to accommodate it now, but